So, guys, we are back from a little bit of a YouTube hiatus. Let's jump right in and talk about SpaceX. Let's talk about our boy Elon Musk. He so kindly took a break from his little drug addiction. He put the lean down, he put the backwoods down for a few minutes. He put on pause, his baby mama drama on Twitter. He put on hold even his Twitter addiction to do a side quest of making $1 trillion. Can you imagine? Now, Elon Musk, like the rest of these wacky people that run our world, run the country, like Donald, like Joey B. It's an interesting cast of characters. I don't think it makes too much sense to sit around and be upset about these people, but I think they're interesting and hilarious people to follow. It is what it is, right? So, as far as the actual stock, the actual company, SpaceX IPO, I mean, what can I say that hasn't already been said? They make $18 billion in revenue. It's total peanuts compared to all the other companies in their relative market cap. We all know this, right? It's, in my opinion, a little bit crazy that the NASDAQ got rid of all these rules. In case you're not so familiar, the NASDAQ, a stock exchange, they require their companies, the companies that trade, to qualify for the NASDAQ, I should say. They require profitability standards. They require all sorts of requirements. You have to have been on the market for a certain amount of time to make it. They scrapped all those to make room for SpaceX. Is that fair? I don't think so. Does that undermine the credibility of the market? I do think so. What are we going to do about it? It is what it is, okay? As far as my opinion on SpaceX, I think to simplify it into one sentence, we have a balance of, I think most people can agree this thing is way overvalued, but on the other hand, our friend Elon Musk is the king, is the master of making stock go up. So, is it a good buy? I don't know. I personally don't own it. It is what it is, okay? So let's move on. So I'm in a little bit of a dilemma, a little bit of a situation with my opinion on analysts. If you're a longtime viewer of this beautiful channel, you'll know I have major beef with analysts for a couple of reasons. I think trying to predict the movement of the stock market, trying to essentially predict the future, trying to tell people, oh, the market's going to be here at this date. I think it's impossible to predict the future. I think it's a scam. I think you get where I'm going. The whole point of this job is to predict the market. Predicting the market is impossible. It's a scam. But I was humbled a little bit because back in December, a Morgan Stanley analyst said Micron is going to have the single greatest upside potential in revenue in the entire semiconductor industry. I listened, I bought, I made a bunch of money, I made a bunch of people a bunch of money. So I was humbled a little bit. And I'm a man, I can admit sometimes when my views are wrong. So I have an updated opinion. I think when analysts are just straight up predicting the market, throw it in the trash. I think when analysts are making very unbold claims, oh, Apple's trading at 200, I'm going to set a price target prediction at 210. Oh, Micron just jumped to $1,000. I'm going to make my price target at 1,100. Ignore it. It's a waste of time. But my screen keeps going dark. That's why I keep tapping the screen. I think when we see analysts making very bold predictions, do we need to accept that it's going to be correct? No, but I do think it is worth looking into it. Okay, so I've got all this yapping to say. I've got a little... What is up with my screensaver? Whatever. We're going to power through. I saw a few articles talking about JP Morgan analysts would be aggressive buyers of Broadcom. Now, in case you're not aware, Broadcom is a semiconductor giant. They got smoked after their last earnings report because all their financials look great, but their guidance as far as their AI chip stocks was lower than expected, and of course lower than what Wall Street would have liked, what investors would have liked. So the stock plummeted. Now, JP Morgan, I don't even think we need to go through this entire thing, but long story short, JP Morgan basically summarized and said they're one of the leaders in the industry. They're projecting massive upside for revenue. They're projecting that large companies like Alphabet will continue to do business and do more business with Broadcom. And they said, and I quote, they would be aggressive buyers of Broadcom stock. Does this mean we need to go out and run and buy the stock? Honestly, I might buy the stock. I'm getting a nice little chunk of change at the end of the month. I'm going to see where Broadcom's at then. I'm thinking about buying it, but does that mean we need to go out and buy the stock? No, but I do think it's worth it to keep an eye on, okay? Now, also, speaking of analysts, bold analyst claims, I recently saw an analyst give a 48% price target hike on Marvell. Let me see if I can find this. I always start yapping about this and then I decide to pull it up during the video. Sorry, Nala. Excuse me. Okay, so a analyst, Riley analyst, Craig Ellis from a firm named Riley, they hiked their price target from 240 to 345 on Marvell Technologies. I'm already holding the stock, so, yeah, but thought that was worth a highlight as well. The last thing I want to talk about, if I can keep my sanity from my phone going dark every 2 seconds and needing to tap the screen, is the war in Iran. We've won the war in Iran. Iran surrendered, but I don't even, honestly, I don't even think it's important to follow this stuff because sometimes the market cares, sometimes the market doesn't care. What do you get out of really following this, especially if you're dollar cost averaging, if you're buying and holding? Why try to be jumping in and out of positions based on this stuff? But it's like, I'm reading this article. I already read this. I'm just going to kind of summarize what I read. So Iran reportedly closed the Strait of Hormuz, again, casting shadow over nuclear talks. That's the title of the article. Within this article, it says, Iran came out and declared that the Strait of Hormuz is closed. Okay? And what they're saying, and let's take a step back. If you remember, part of the ceasefire agreement is that Iran and the U.S. are going to tone down their tensions and their military operations, but Iran also wants Israel to leave Lebanon, to pull their forces out of Lebanon, and for there to be also a ceasefire between these two countries. Okay? Israel and Lebanon are fighting. So from what I understand, let me not get political, just trying to report this, if I understand correctly. Israel bombed Lebanon, and they're now back to fighting. So Iran is saying the ceasefire is off. But then U.S. officials, let me just read this word for word. U.S. officials dispute Iran's assertion that it had closed the Strait of Hormuz. Iran does not control the Strait of Hormuz, U.S. Central Command spokesman Navy Captain Tim Hawkins told Reuters. Traffic continues to flow, and U.S. forces are monitoring the situation to ensure this remains the case. Now, on top of that, J.D. Vance said that, again, quote, we actually got 16 million barrels of oil out of the Strait of Hormuz yesterday. That is a record going back to even before the conflict started. So Iran is saying the Strait of Hormuz is closed. J.D. Vance is saying not only is it not closed, but there is a record amount of oil flowing through the Strait of Hormuz, even going back to before the strait was ever shut down. So that's one of the tough things about this war is we're getting information from the U.S., from Iran, and from Israel. In my opinion, these are all completely untrustworthy sources of information. On top of that, they all have totally contradicting interests, and they all want to make themselves look good and make everyone else look bad. So it's tough to really even understand what's going on, but it is what it is. So we're back on YouTube. Thank you very much for watching. Love you. Bye-bye.